I'm sure you guys have done this too, where you go see, you know, the Dawn of the Dead remake or, you know, Zombieland or something, and it inevitably leads to hanging out afterwards with your buddies and talking about what would you do. Those fantasies, like what would you do, how would you do it, we wanted to make a game that was about that, about giving you that ability to live out your own survival fantasy, and so that's what we wanted to try to do.
It's always tricky working on a sequel because of that fan expectation. There are things that you could do that you feel like might make the game tons better, but because you've established a baseline, you've established a particular tone, certain things end up being off limits.
Being able to build a sequel around mechanics that we know work and that people like, there's just the overwhelming amount of data and feedback we've gotten is great.
Folks were asking for a very particular kind of game.
The number one thing that every player asked for was cooperative multiplayer. I really want to be able to play State of Decay with my friends. You know, from the very beginning, it was easy to say, yeah, we're going to do that.
And so that's what we made. There are so many dimensions of different kinds of gameplay and interactions that you get when you're dealing with other live human being players when you're getting into the game. The goal really was about cooperation, about helping each other out. And the best way to do that is to be able to get into somebody's game and sort of be additive to their community as opposed to like taking things away or being able to do any kind of real damage. So we really want to emphasize cooperation and building each other up. So the host is still in total control of their own base. You're not going to be able to go in there and start tearing down somebody's facilities and messing up their base, but you have a lot of agency as a player that's going into somebody else's game. In addition to that, there are a lot of different ways to get into multiplayer. If you are looking to play with your friends and you just want your friends to be able to jump at any time, that's sort of the default option. Your game's kind of open to your friends. If they're on your friends list, Xbox Live, they can jump in, start helping you out whenever they see that you're playing online. If you want your game to be private and only want to invite certain people at a certain time, you can do that as well. We have a flare mechanic that allows you to get on the radio, shoot a flare up into the air, and request help from anybody who's playing. And what that does is it opens up your game to the entire pool of volunteers who have said, look, I don't care who I play with right now, I'm just really looking to help somebody out, get some cool multiplayer rewards, and then come back into my game and kind of keep going. And so that game makes your game kind of public for a brief window of time. Players can jump in that have volunteered to help, come in, help you out, and then go back to their games and get their cool multiplayer rewards.
Unreal 4 has very powerful prototyping tools that we're super excited about.
The crazy horsepower that the engine is able to put out has really helped us to kind of drive certain aspects of the gameplay, the combat systems, the animations, the number of zombies that you're able to fight at once.
Upgrading from the 360 to the One and the One X obviously was pretty huge for us. I believe the first game was a live game, and I think it had a 2 gig limit on it, which is pretty much like a fraction of our texture budget this time. So we were able to do a ton of new stuff, new maps, more characters, more cars, more zombies, more simulation. Everything was a huge pump up. It does give us the ability to create a smoother, richer, more graphically pleasing world for the players to play in. Night in State of Decay 2 is meant to be scary. I really wanted to take experiences from when I've been camping or hiking at night, or in my parents' cabin at night, where you get these black silhouettes of hills and trees and rocks silhouetted against the skyline. So you really have like a circle around the character that feels a little claustrophobic. We are not setting out to terrify you. We're setting out to stress you. And to give you the ability to overcome that stress. So we wanted to make sure we made something exciting and different, with our night in the game.
One of the biggest lessons that we learned was that players aren't necessarily looking for a canned experience end-to-end. When players were having the most fun, it was when their experience was unique. We've really embraced that in State of Decay 2 and focused on making sure that every player's experience with their community and every community itself was unique so that everybody has their own survival story.
I want players to feel like they got to decide how to survive the apocalypse and determine whether it worked or not, and to get that satisfaction of testing their mettle.
We've added tons of detail and richness to the survivors, to the characters that you're playing as, to the base building, and it's just a better game all around.
You know, I said earlier, everybody has their own survival plan. If you even have a remote interest in the genre, you've got your own survival plan. What's interesting too is that everybody thinks they'll survive. Eventually, except for under very special circumstances, almost every character you ever play is going to die. And if we do our job, then almost every time you die, you're going to realize where you went wrong. Our goal will always be to make that fantasy, that survival fantasy, more and more realistic and more accurate.